I, like many people, find joy in the simple pleasures of life, like throwing car batteries in the ocean and playing video games that were designed to scare you, but do not always succeed in that. Some of them shower you in jump scares, while others abstain themselves from this practice to such an extent that you genuinely can forget that you were supposed to shit yourself. Somewhere in the middle of these two extremes stands a franchise like no other. A world-renowned hit with a cult-like following by the name of fucking Slendytubbies. Slendytubbies is a horror game franchise that nobody expected, I didn't fucking understand, and you likely haven't played because you have a happy and fulfilling life. It is December 2012. For most of you, it may be a blissful memory of the holiday festivities associated with the month. What you didn't know was that somewhere in Northern Ireland there sat a man before his monitor, like a wise wizard stirring away at his cauldron. He was cooking. What you didn't know was that he was about to fucking nuke the early 2010s Let's Players by releasing a game that can only be described as peak indie horror. But before we get into this, fuck man, listen, heed my words, shit lips. We'll be talking about these games in chronological order, and in this case it means that there's progressively more to talk about the closer we get to the last game of the series. So I'll briefly cover the first few so that this video does not become a complete fucking attention span nightmare. Not because I want to, but because I just don't fucking know how to straight gate creep without indirectly killing off half my subscribers by pushing them to suicide. Alright big guy, hear me out. I know this looks like something you would download from Game Jolt after selling your grandmother's television for roughly 1 month of internet access, but bear with me for a minute. This game is not very good. I found a— oh, what the fuck? That's fucking crazy. Ah, you fucking racist! Even for a game older than half my— no, wait. Based?
Lonely middle-aged man gang, where are you at?
Fellas, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes big man-made horrors have little, repulsive beginnings. But such is the nature of all things in life. The chicken comes from the egg, Platyrines evolve into the chimpanzee, and the chimpanzee gets launched into the fucking sun. Simple as. So anyway, in this game, Tinky Winky, the purple one, went gorilla mode with his friends after snorting that Azerbaijani shadow garden grown dark evil Kush custard. So you are tasked with collecting that forbidden liquid you can only find walking along the hashish transport paths in the fucking Teletubby land, before God's strongest tweaker gets uncomfortably close and absolutely fucking obliterates your eardrums with probably my favorite jumpscare sound effect ever. Oh no! As you already guessed, my fellow Haitians, this is quite blatantly a Slenderman clone with slightly more brain damage. With similar collect X amount of Y goal as well as the antagonist's way of attacking being similar to the one used by the lanky-ass motherfucker found in the aforementioned Marble Hornets spin-off MMORPG called Slenderman the 8 Pages. With later installments of the franchise changing that aspect of the game to have the now various enemies literally throw hands at you, which is honestly a great change. Before starting the game you get an option to choose the time of day, with night being the only plausible way this game can scare you. And you know, so far it makes no sense how a game that seems to fail at scaring anyone that isn't Markiplier got so popular and managed to live long enough to get a sequel. Well, the thing that made this game special is not the horror, but the spirit. The faithful recreation of the location from the TV show that many— holy fuck, bars!
What's the beast to a dinosaur, nigga?
From the TV show that many have watched in their childhood, sprinkled with horrific displays of gore and some wacky Easter eggs here and there at the time, made this game stand out. And if not particularly terrified, overall the people were pleased with their experience of being a drug mule in ganja. That spirit is probably the thing that drew so many eyes to the game, whether they were Let's Player or not. This whole corrupt innocent character trope, much like shitting in a urinal, was and still is an exceptionally effective way to gather horrified onlookers. For people back then it was like stepping back into childhood, but with a sinister twist. My dick. Honestly, there's not a lot I can say about this game aside from the fact that it's pretty shit compared to what comes next, but also just in general. There are scarier, prettier games in Roblox with more mechanical depth. Also, despite being the first game in the series, it is somehow not canon. That's right, no lore significance, no auto-tune, just straight ass! But I mean, come on, I got the point across. This little project paved the way for the game that completely changed the landscape of slightly autistic indie horror. Slendytubbies 2 is the game that shows best how far this game has come in terms of, fuck. He screamed at me for the first time like— Just from my gameplay, you can see that this game is better than its predecessor at literally everything, which was admittedly not exactly a high standard. SpongeBob in Kazakhstan. We quickly went from a single low-quality soy jack harassing you in the middle of basically nowhere to a wide variety of quirky and unique offenders of different shapes and sizes. And would you look at that, now you can bring along some friends without using dark magic like... Yeah, good luck convincing them to play a game called Slendytubbies, bro. It simply feels better, plays better, and most importantly, looks better. And even though this game looks moist and soggy 90% of the fucking time, personally I think it adds to the rough visuals, along with the usage of colder colors, really makes the environments feel hostile. This is not something that I see very often in horror games these days. Typically, if the game is set in a forest, for example, you will see these beautiful, crispy fucking trees with healthy looking grass. Like, listen, big guy, I'm not at all saying that you can't make a scary game in this environment. But compared to this, Slendytubbies 2 looks like your neighborhood sleep-deprived shark teeth-having low-key rabbit-ass crackhead with an extreme case of male pattern baldness, lurking around the local Long John Silvers after taking through 7 heroin overdoses just this fucking evening alone. But come on, enough about the stage 100 syphilis visual design. Let's talk about the gameplay. The objective, as well as the gameplay loop, mostly stays the same, but this time we have replay value. Different maps come with different subjects to chase the player. The designs of some of these monsters exemplify the right way to make a character look unnerving. Zio works bold on this character's design so hard I thought he was a fucking nutsack. And even though some of these include ripped assets from different games, I don't think it takes away that much from the sheer swag that is on display right now. Map design, while lacking in attention to functional details, makes up for it with either entertaining Easter eggs or references to the original show, suggesting that this sequel wasn't exactly forced by the numerous requests of adoring middle schoolers. You can see just how much more seasoning this franchise has compared to the usual salt and pepper of dark forests and pale naked dudes we've seen in horror these days. Not to say that encountering pale naked dudes in a dark forest is a bland experience, it's just that where did the horrifically mangled yet somehow animated corpses go, you know? If I was in your shoes, I'd check under the bed! Listen, when you work on the atmosphere for your horror game, generally speaking, it is easier to refine it when it is contained to a claustrophobic environment. Any horror game with good atmosphere I can think of is at least partially using these cramped environments, but Zio seems to love his vast open fields, sometimes even with high visibility where you can see La Creatura from fucking miles away. And I know that on paper this sounds fucking horrible for a horror game, but...
10 years in the...
You know, guys, when life gives you lemons, what's important for you to do is to accept the fact that life just sometimes bestows a... Yeah man, what can I say? I'm turning 43 this year and yet I still scream at video games like a little bitch. I had a surprising amount of fun playing this game. I was getting into this thinking that while gathering footage I would have to just suffer through the first and second game until I finally get to the meat of the series. Boy was I wrong. There I was, sitting there, laughing and screaming, and for the first 5 minutes I was even a little on edge, because I didn't want to appear cowardly in front of my smart, strong, genetically gifted, conventionally sexually attractive viewer, but no matter how much I enjoyed my time with this game, I just couldn't quite get over the many issues with the game. Different bugs and stutters, oversights, and sometimes just poor game design. Like this time I actually get to elaborate on the Roblox horror game mechanical depth joke I made earlier. Like, look at this. The eye only has 2 conditions. Once the player spawns, the diddler will immediately beeline towards the closest caster to the player, in hopes that it manages to encounter the player and go into phase 2. But if not, the diddler will just stand next to the bowl of the forbidden liquid of questionable origin yet tremendously tender taste, until the player leaves the area, which will trigger the diddler to start calmly walking towards the caster now closest to the player, or if the player will awkwardly approach to say hi, the diddler will enter the second phase, chase, and will pursue the player relentlessly until the game ends in any way. You can't lose him, you can't hide from him. This is very unimpressive, even for 2014. The creator himself has said that this game was easiest to make in the series, and honestly it shows. Like, here's some other stuff. On the lake map, the monster is this special needs regenerator from Resident Evil 4. You can outrun him with your walking speed. Like, give my boy mobility scooter at this point, cause Teletubbies were made in a free country! And what's even worse is that if he even manages to sneak up on you, his animation is so out of place in this game that you can evade his malicious chomp by pressing S for 1/10 of a second. This is exactly why monsters in horror games should generally be allowed to attack while running. Enemies in general in this game have trouble outmaneuvering the player, and shit's rough.
Give him back shots.
But hey, these mistakes exist so that the divine creator is able to work on them in the next game. But before we talk about the third game, let's take a minute to see how's the community doing. Okay, maybe I'm being a little dramatic, so let's be honest here. It seems fandoms of games like this just can't help but draw Teletubbies having steamy gay sex, and I'm not about to write 100 words on it. So instead of doing that, let's get to the real interesting stuff, that being the fan games. And why do these look so good? Most of these are no joke better than all the official games except Slendytubbies 3 maybe, with one of them being better than the entire franchise combined. Of course, I'm talking about Slendytubbies Poland game. God, I fucking love Krakow! It's time to talk about the titan of indie horror that is Slendytubbies 3. When I was covering the previous two games, it might have appeared like I was scrubbing desperately for things to talk about. But Slendytubbies 3 is where they hide all the meat, the fat, the protein. In a game mode that is built on trying to spot the monster before it spots you, building an environment that has good atmosphere yet doesn't feel completely peaceful or comforting to the player can do wonders for the game. Here's some cherry-picked footage of the moments where I felt Zeoworks was wearing his baller-ass kitchen apron baking some environments to hide his various cadavers.
You're fucking gay! What is this nigga doing now?
What are you, Down syndrome?
Holy fuck. Bruh.
These are great environments, and if they were given more polish, you could put this in any horror game and somehow it will work universally. And to elaborate, by needing more polish, I mean the abominable way lighting interacts with the monsters. Like on the map Outskirts, it is genuinely painful to look at. Some places are barred off with an invisible wall, there's fall damage out of nowhere sometimes, as well as objects that insta-kill you on contact when they really shouldn't. But a good thing that I've noticed is that some maps just got a direct upgrade, and that includes monster designs.
Look, brand new boogeyman, unhinged jaw, fucked up tentacle arm from gooning and zerking his peanuts too much.
Big cleaver, big head, big sharp teeth making me act up. 8 out of 10, great, amazing, and most importantly, look at this. The guy from the lake map that got verbally molested like 15 seconds ago. Biggest glow up in modern history. We went from this weird fucking limping 7 feet tall jonkler looking scoliosis having ass fiend to this shiny, curvaceous, many polygon having wild, lizard-like apex predator. And he is infinitely faster in both moving speed and attack speed. The only bad thing I can say about him is that he got significantly blinder. Like, this is an unreasonably small range, but at least he can actually do something. Like you can see in this footage how when I saw his goofy ass walking animation I was sure I would get to milk him for footage like last time, but little did I know, I was the one getting... I'm not saying that, what the fuck? Like how can one possibly go from barely being strong enough to drag his own body?
Oh, his face! No!
It actually has a story mode this time, and it's good? Wait, it's not? What the fuck? Like, objectively speaking, it's clunky as fuck. Some parts feel stretched out, while the real good shit just flashes by in like 20 seconds, but at least we can respect it for what it is. Evil ass Teletubbies lore, with all the sophisticated mechanics such as quick time events and giving different choices to the player which will result in different events and even endings. I am so erect, I'm about to explode. And before we go into analyzing the story mode, I must give you a huge yep disclaimer. I will make everything seem much deeper than it is, and I'm going to speak out of my ass so hard I might need to see a proctologist afterwards. The story starts the same way I described it in the first game. Chapter 1 and 0 mostly revolves around the events following his madness and the infection, spreading from the Benadryl-laced custards in the once peaceful Teletubby land. Tinky Winky and the infection from the Tubby custard, his downfall, can be likened to the tragic flaw, or hamartia, of Greek heroes, where a small initial act of curiosity or misfortune brings about total ruin. His transformation into a monstrous, unstoppable force embodies a descent into madness comparable to the Bacchae by Euripides, where Dionysus drives the women of Thebes mad. The central character, the Guardian, our main character for the 90% of the game, embarks on a mission to stop the infection and hopefully save their friends. Those friends turning out to be glorified lab rats, as it's revealed that the main cast from the show are unwilling participants of a weird scientific experiment that seemingly went completely off the fucking rails as one fateful night, Poe awakes to the sight of her best friend smashing the fucking custard machine in a fit of gamer rage. He then wanders off into the night. Two of his friends end up forming a small search party, and then splitting in an effort to find him sooner. However, when Poe stumbles upon she notices the brutalized body of her friend Lala, but what's even worse, she discovers that her best friend was depicted as a soy jack. She then runs back to the house, where she discovers Dipsy's decapitated body and Nunu the vacuum missing. Shortly after that, Poe herself gets cornered and cut.
And put in a cage. I read about a did you say want?
Seeing Poe on his camera feed, the Guardian, who is from this point onward our only protagonist, figures that this massacre was caused by the casters, and after getting through mutant-infested sewers and collecting all but one castard from the mainland, he finds Poe's dead body. There he encounters Stinky Winky, who snatches the last custard by using telekinesis. Stupid gluttonous fuck! He turns into this giant trainable enthusiast who runs after our protagonist in a chase sequence with probably the hardest piece of horror game soundtrack I've ever heard. Holy fuck, who made music for this shit? There we get the decision to either go into the cave or run up the mountains in an attempt to escape the steroid chat, with each choice resulting in a unique chapter that comes afterwards. After this point, our choices so far really start kicking in, with you eventually getting a bad ending if you're an evil-ass goblin or just shit at video games, and the good ending if you are based. You know, this game really tried to do everything. It's one thing to make some sort of a free mode for your players to mess around in after the campaign, but this game had a campaign, a collect game mode which can be turned into a versus mode, a survival mode, where the vacuum-made horrors now within your comprehension get to taste that sweet load of 556 straight into the fucking cranium, and a sandbox mode where you can spawn stuff and make stuff, kill stuff. In story mode I had my fun. I can't say that I was like fucking enthralled by the also deep narrative of evil-ass Teletubbies committing war crimes in Yugoslavia, but if I were to close my eyes on some things, I can absolutely say that my experience was quite enjoyable indeed, and the collect mode was just a much more polished concept from the previous games and is nearly perfectly made in my opinion. But survival is just...
Fuck out of here.
You know, before I played this game I was kind of anticipating the moment I won't have to play or write about these games. Because at first I was really kind of forcing this so bad that it's good vision on myself, but now I see this franchise for what it is. Peak. The DLC for this game was developed primarily by this guy named Senticon. It comes down to the good guys doing a bunch of doohickey around the evil-ass machine for 20 minutes with occasional schizophrenic episodes from the Guardian. Can have shit in the Teletubby land, bro. It was supposed to be quite big, but got cancelled quite early, because apparently the community was toxic. Based, fuck them kids. Yeah, you for once try to do something nice for the people, but, and I'll quote the famous words of Indian spiritual leader, philosopher and the founder of the Rajneesh movement, Rajneesh Chandra Moha, but the people are retarded. Slendytubbies Worlds is the second to last game in the series. And I know, you look at these characters and you think that compared to the last game we covered, the quality of the product have dropped harder than the Zimbabwean dollar in late 2006. And you'll be right to think that. Actually, never mind, the thing doesn't even fucking work. The servers are down and so is my syndrome. After processing this information, I got so angry I went outside and started throwing bricks at the local homeless population. But from what I've seen from other people's gameplay, as well as just reviews and opinions, is that aside from the new visuals, third-person perspective, and the weird free roam mode, there's nothing new or interesting about this game. There's a collect mode, and on the website it says that this game is intended to be played for roleplay, and like, what the fuck will that look like?
We're not done. Daddy isn't done speaking.
And more importantly, why? I refuse to believe anyone wanted this, even Zio works. And at first I thought that this game was released around 2017, back when FNAF Worlds released, I guess in an attempt to steal the slightly autistic children from Scott Cotton. This was 2023. This was released in the post-Skibidi toilet world. The Guardian collection is something that I found out about when I was in the middle of writing the script. And I'm just gonna pull up some images real quick, like, you can see that this man is cooking something delectable. Like, this visual design is what will make this series actually look unnerving. It has a hint of that muddy, veiny feel that made Slendytubbies 2 look more unsettling than 3 in my opinion, but without that moist aforementioned stage 100 syphilis visual design. Look at these eyes, man, they've seen some shit. It looks like he walked in on his grandparents doing this shop boing boing. This guy looks more unsettling than half the monsters we've seen in the series so far, especially in 3. And he's the good guy. Imagine how the already good designs will look when ZeoWorks will get his grubby hands on him. It has been stated that this game will be the last in the series, which is something that I think was said about all of them. I don't know if ZeoWorks has been stuck in a cycle of seemingly moving on to have a fulfilling life, just to succumb to the masculine urge to make a scary Teletubbies game. And I think that if he stays true to his word, it'll actually be a good thing, because the man has a shitload of experience. He even made his own engine at some point. And I unironically think that if ZeoWorks goes on to make games more in line with the modern, randomly generated, replayable proximity chat, co-op horror games that are getting big these days, he will genuinely conquer that landscape, at least for a short while. And this prediction might seem like an ass pull, especially since you could say I've been indirectly bullying him throughout the runtime of this video, but the 3 main installments have so far been direct improvements from each other. And if the Guardian collection will be half of the upgrade that SL3 was to SL2, then you can absolutely make that prediction. I actually yearn for the world where ZeoWorks will be known as someone else than John Slendytubbies. Moving on to this little announcement poster, we see that this collection will include the supposed remasters of the 3 main installments, and as you can see, the 4th line is this super secret question mark game. And if it's Slendytubbies 4, then it'll be a nice little hurrah for the series, and a conclusion that I think everyone will be satisfied with. But if it'll turn out to be a remaster of Worlds, I will shove an entire Klondike bar up my ass. At this point I can practically hear like 3 people screaming about the games in the series that I didn't cover, so I guess we could take a moment to look at... It turns out that this game was released before 3, and is the reason why we now have the better monster designs. It's the usual collect game mode, but in 2D, and if I remember correctly, it was pretty big on mobile. Aside from frequent bugs, this is actually an okay mobile game, I guess. Waiter, may I please have some lore relevance? So, this is Fruit Ninja for retarded children. Dipsy's Workshop was a mobile game released in 2015 and was supposed to be a New Year's gift to the community. And you know, it makes me wonder, what did you fucks do in 2015 to deserve this? The Tianjin explosions? As of now, there is no official way to download this game, thank god. It is believed that it was removed because of copyright issues, but in reality, an astral projection of Andrew Davenport appeared outside ZeoWorks' house, forcing him to take the game down under threats of sexual violence. Looking back on everything I've yapped about so far, I can safely say that even if this series didn't manage to leave a great impact on the industry, in my eyes at least, it has managed to do something very special. And by that I mean in 2024, where indie horror has got taken over by so-called mascot horror, with its colorful characters and environments that are designed to appeal to children in order to sell merchandise, Slendytubbies is a sort of anomaly, an artifact of what horror parodies used to be, because this series, even though seems to belong in the same boat as your Gardens of Ban and Poppy Playtale, it refuses to go with the formulaic bullshit that these games are known for. This series was not afraid to try very unconventional things, even if they were likely to fail. It didn't take itself too seriously, but it did just enough to let the creativity here shine through. And it is in today's day and age, a series that consistently has so much time and effort put into it for an uncertain result and no promise of monetary gain, someone like ZeoWorks stands out.